Alright, so you're basically top tier. Oh, look at that lighting. There we go. It was really on fire for a second there. Alright, so this is a pretty good comp for you. It's Encounter. Encounter is actually a little bit worse for light tanks just because people don't tend to move through the center area too much. But you still want to get that early intel. And so typically, because like you'll notice that the heavy or slower tanks spawn on this east spawn and the quicker tanks spawn on the west spawn. So that allows these heavy tanks to get across a lot of times without you spawning them. So generally what I do is, especially if I spawn in this in the west spawn here, is I'll do the center west scout because I want to know if any of those slow guys come back, because it's not really easy for me to tell unless they're really slow how many of them are going to cross over here. But it's really easy for me to tell how many of them turn around and come back this way. So I generally will run this ridge here and just do this center west scout, and then just by deduction I'll know who went east, right? Because everything that you figure out that went to the east is in a sense irrelevant, because either you're not going to have a real easy time spotting them, or you're going to get lit by an TTP. So you never want to stop in a light tank. You can just keep going, because otherwise RNG. Like, this isn't particularly a super effective place for light tanks to hang out. Like, you almost never want to be motionless on a map like this, just because being a little bit more active is advantageous. And then you got a bunch of campers back here. This leopard is up high, so potentially if these guys surf, they can get punished. Or if these guys poke up, they can get punished. But they need somebody to light. You're the only guy in this middle here, so you do wanna light this area. And you don't want to be too far back from the center, because that actually allows them to get better shots on you. But you want to be basically on this line right here, on that line right there. And then it's just, you know, a little surf action. A lot of what you do in the early game on Prokhorovka is just surf. It creates opportunities for your team. Like, I wouldn't even bother taking that shot from this range in a 1390. Like, you need to be more cognizant of these guys here. These guys here are what's going to cause problems for your boys over here. And so you can create shots for them. This M103 is charging, so you just want to be away from him. And again, you can play through this area right here. Remember, you don't really need to look to use your gun a whole lot. Oh, he blew his load a little bit early. He just he needed to get a little bit closer. If you're gonna commit like that 49 did, just go all in. And these guys are sitting up here, which is fantastic for you, because your guys on this side can end up getting good shots on them. Your artillery is in a position where you can hit them as well. And again, remember, you just don't want to move too far back, because moving too far back is actually going to give that T-30 better shots on you. You want to, you know, sort of like how that M103 played it, you want to force it so that they have to commit to shoot you. See, like that JP2 shouldn't have even had an opportunity to shoot you, and also there's a 71 behind you, which you should be aware of. which you are now aware of. And so this is the reverse of the T49, you know, charging you, right? You're the guy with the bad accuracy, and he can't really outrun you per se. So you just need to make this a fight in a phone booth, basically. You need to get close and then just use your clip to own him in the face. But you don't want to ram him, you don't want to stop moving, you just want to keep fighting. Nice work. And again, remember this, be careful going over this hill, because that T-30 and other people can shoot you. So again, like one of the your team isn't playing this super well, although this Leo is still in a good position to shoot these guys up here. But essentially, because if you're far enough back here, you actually, it makes it easier for these guys to shoot you, which is why when I was talking about the line earlier, you basically want to be a little bit more up here, because that forces them to really commit to come over in order to get shots on you. If you're sitting in the back, it's just too easy for them to get shots, and you don't really have enough to actually punish them. So if you're leaving that area entirely, that's one thing, then you can just leave. But if you're gonna play the middle, you don't want to play it in that no man's land. You want to be all the way up, or you want to be all the way back. You could theoretically push this Scorp, but that would cost. There would be a significant cost involved in that. Now that cost is going to be less. It would be nice if you could take out that well, if your team could take out that T-30, you just need to be able to light them. I wouldn't bother shooting at the E-75 from this range. Worry about lighting these guys here. You need to create a little bit more for your team right now. And this is the problem with the French light tanks, is the accuracy is just not there. And you have to understand that this T-30, right, if he's paying attention, can shoot you as well. Which is why this position is not a super solid play. Like if you're a medium tank or a heavy tank, you can play through here. If you're playing a light tank, particularly the 1390, which has a clip and is not good at range, you want to be careful about playing this sort of snipey role. You want to, like, for example, your artillery is still alive. So if he's targeting up here or up there, as long as he's got shots, like that's really what you're concerned about. Well, it looks like they got that Scorp down on that other side. So they're also weak on this side over here. But so essentially, what theoretically could happen? We don't know what else is down there potentially. We know that they've got most of their tanks on this east side of the map. But theoretically, you know, one of the things that we always talk about when we look at the way that teams move is that if these guys move down this one line, all you gotta do is keep these guys lit, and then from this position down here, it's really easy to shoot into this area over here for free. And that's sort of the power of map control. I mean, you guys haven't really lost the map control battle. You are gonna lose this east here, but you need to be like, typically when I look at these games, you have to understand there's going to be some attrition, and so you kind of have to write off this side, like you have to write off this hill area here, because you're probably not going to be able to win that. I mean, you're not going to be able to punish enough with the little puny 1390 gun. You got 3 shots left in your clip, and then you're going to be sitting here for 40 seconds. And the range that this is at is not a real good range for you. That 400 meter range, even if it's into the sides of these tanks, is not going to be super ideal. And especially if you're trying to hit side turret on that guy, although you did hit it there. So you did 2 shots of damage out of that clip, which, again, from that range, I mean, that's fine, but I don't necessarily know that those shots were necessary. Like, if that was anything other than the E-75, like if that was a medium tank, like if that was that T-54E1, where you've got a better shot at penning those shots, you know, if you can go 4 of 6 out of that clip on the T-54E1, then that's worth it. But going 2 of 6 on the side of an E-75, I don't know. And so, again, though, at least at this point, you know where most of their team is. And so a lot of times what happens in these games is when one team wins one side, what you want to be able to do is at least clear out this side, so that it becomes, right, so rather than losing 3/4 of the map to control, you basically just shift. And so it becomes, instead of a north-south game, it becomes an east-west game. So if you clear out through here, you at least don't have the problem of people coming up and shooting your guys in the back as they're trying to defend east-west. So now we know where the Roomba is. So we know where all of their tanks are, so more or less. And so again, see where these guys are in the middle here? It's really vulnerable to pushing down here. Even on a light tank, you can basically spot and range shoot them from down here. They've got all of their tanks, right, are on this side, which leaves them ultimately vulnerable to this one line. And again, you want to do it, like one of the problems that I have with the way that people play light tanks, and I feel like you've played your light tank reasonably well so far, but one of the problems that I have with people who play light tanks is that they try to attack into people frontally just far too much, and I don't understand that. Light tanks don't have good armor, they don't have good health, they don't have good DPM, they don't have good alpha, they don't have good penetration. What other things don't they have, right? So all of these things means that you don't want to get into a fight in a phone booth against a bigger tank, right? So you don't want to fight a lot of these tanks frontally. That's never, ever, ever, ever going to play to your advantage. You want to play to your strength. And now you're turning around and heading this way, which is good. I like this play. Like, I like this play where this Leo's going over here. Again, if that Leo is going to go down and get shots there, you can be the guy that serves to light for him. You can't, you theoretically could push to where that RU is at. I don't think you need to. But what you want to be able to do is get down to here, because you're going to lose this side soon. So what you want to be able to do is clear this Roomba out, and then to clear out this T-30. And what that's going to allow you to do is that's going to allow you to have access to this back here. Because if they get on cap, you're not really worried about getting capped out. You just need to be able to clear the rest of this out ASAP. And so you'll see that you already have shots on this guy if you want, where the Roomba's at. So you do need to be close enough where you can actually light him as well, because you can't. You gotta be able to do both. Which is why these bushes right here are great for that, because you can light him and then just back up through the bushes and then shoot him. Well, you gotta be careful because that T-30 is there as well. Oh, there he is. Did he light you? Nope. Go to town, my man. Go to town. And then just, you can take your time. Aim in front. Yeah, you need to aim in front of him. Because the aim time on this tank is really bad, right? This is not a sniping tank. But you can do this. You just need to aim in front of him. You don't trace in these types of tanks. When you've got that 3-second aim time, you don't want to trace them. You want to preset. So he's probably in that bush line now, which is going to make it really difficult for you. What you can do is play through this center line here, because what you need to do is figure out if this T-30 went over or not. You don't necessarily want to push into this guy right here, although apparently he's not on the bush line, so that is good for you. You do need to back up a little bit. I actually wouldn't worry too much about the 40-43. The Roomba is really your concern. We know that he doesn't have really good vision, but you don't have any bushes out here. So what you probably need to do is back up to about right there, maybe about 20 meters. I'm not even sure if that much. It depends on how good his crew is at. And you can, I mean, it would be close. You can theoretically kill this guy. You just need to make your shots count. Oh, now you definitely can. Yeah, there you go. Aim in the front. There you go. Yeah, a little bit of RNG there never hurts. And so the Leo will get this guy, but that is fine. So one of the things, I don't think that taking that shot is a problem, but you do need to make sure that he's lit. So because you know, right, that you're probably not going to kill him short of an ammo rack or a fire. You know that you're going to clip, which means it's going to be 45-50 seconds, which means that this Leo from his position can kill that guy, but you need to make sure that he stays lit for the Leo. Or theoretically, the Leo does not appear to be paying attention. Alright, well, so the Artie is going to live. So you're still really concerned about this guy coming through this middle here. And so what you actually need to do is try to figure out where this T-30 is at. And you can basically run this bush line here, so you're going to be able to outspot them if you do get lit and just cut back across. These guys are just going to move across in through here and then come in towards where this leopard is at. Unfortunately, they were able to get him. I'm not entirely sure what the leopard was doing. It would have been better off if he shifted towards you. When you have that sort of speed, you want to be able to take that advantage. So at this point, what you need to do is you need to pick off that LTTB, and then you already sort of can outrange everybody else. Did a good job being patient there. And then now what you can do is, now you need to sort of take a little bit of chance because you need to clear out. So now you need to push through where this artillery is at and just hope the T-30 hasn't come back to a position where you'll get shot. So you basically want to play this red line. Oh, there's the T-30. Oh, he's almost dead. And then, so this is sort of the butter zone for a lot of light tanks. Like, see how this blue line represents 445 meters, right? And so the distance between this and this is, you know, maybe like 30, 40 meters, somewhere in that range. So this is typically a butter zone. So as long as you have a halfway decent crew in your light tank, you can shoot this tank from this range. And even if he has optics, it's gonna be rough for him. So like, I don't think that you need a bush to shoot this guy right now, is essentially what I'm getting at. You have 5 shots in your clip. It'll take roughly 3 of them. It depends on how you roll. But let's say it takes 3 shots, which will give you 2, which will be plenty to take out the 50-53. So you can potentially waste a shot here as well. But you have time. Like, I don't feel like you need to scroll back here at all. Like, I feel like you could have been dealing damage there, and oh, there we go. Relied a little bit on the RNG there, but you know, you need this. And then again, so this is basically a speed race, right? So this T-54 E1 is coming around through here, and so you need to get out here, kill this RD, and then reload so that you have plenty of time to come back to the T-54. But like in this game, especially in a light tank, like you have the advantages here. You just need to not end up so close to the T-54 E1 that he actually is able to use this clip. And then this is a little sketchy. I don't know if you should push here and then just get out. Yeah, just out, just straight over. No, just leave. Yeah, what you needed to do is just leave. Just like leave out through there. I didn't even notice that you still had the JP alive. That's entertaining. You should still be able to do this, though. That's a good reload. And so you need to find him coming in. So the best thing to do to find him coming in is to hang out in this-ish area over here. Like, you know that he came out over here. You know that he's probably headed out over here because you got lit when the artillery went down. And so this isn't going to be something where you're going to be able to cap and screen. Although if your JP was the one to cap, you potentially screen. But you have to be careful because you need to spot him on the way in, right? And so playing this area can be a little sketchy because it depends on where you think he is, right? So we know, right, because he killed this leopard, we know that he was coming in through this area behind the LTTB. He was presumably in this-ish area when the Leo PTA died, and he just never was able to catch up to you because you're a much faster tank. So you've got the speed advantage on him. It's just a matter of actually applying it. And so the only thing that you're worried about now is that if he's coming across through that line and then he comes up through here, then you need to be able to spot him at like 200 meters away. Like, that's when stuff needs to go down. Otherwise, if he gets closer to you than that, then you have problems. But you have all the advantages here. Okay, so what you don't want to do, you don't necessarily want to push into him. Again, so what you're looking, the situation that you're trying to create here is a range game, where basically how you were playing that T30, where he's always on that fringe. He's always in that sort of 30 to 40 meter distance from the mags. And that's where you have all the advantages in this late game as a light tank, is that you've got camo on the move, you've got better view range than them. And so it's just a matter of figuring out where he's at. And it looks like your JP might get on cap, so you can potentially cap and screen. So again, pushing across here is going to be a little bit difficult. I would be more of a fan of you telling the JP to get on cap, or you even getting on cap yourself. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to close the distance with this guy. Oh, and he was coming up that 6 line. Okay, no, that's perfect. Perfect. So, again, notice where you spotted him. I mean, I guess that is 200-ish meters, but the fact of the matter is you were moving away. So, all you need to do is just range game him. And especially where he's at, remember, this is the exact same function that we saw before. If you push down this one line, you get shots into the backside of here. If you push up this one line, you get shots into the backside of here, and you can play that range game. You don't, yeah, so you do want to play the range game, though. You don't want to sit there, again, you know, we talk about this at the beginning of this replay, is that this, you don't have more armor than him. You don't have a better gun than him. You don't have better pen than him. You don't have better alpha than him. You don't have better DPM than him. You don't have better health than them, right? You have all of the disadvantages, right? The advantage that you have is you can see better than him, right? And so what that means is that if you know where he's at, and you know that he's basically stuck there, right? He doesn't have the mobility to ever catch up to you. So you can always keep him at arm's length. You can always keep him at arm's length and just plink him. And that's all you really need to do. What you don't want to do is create a situation where you're trying to trade against him. Like this is like the antithesis of what light tanks are good at. No, come on, aim. Yeah. So again, all you have to do is just be sitting right here, right, and you'll get perpendicular angles on this guy, so you'll get that side shot that you want. And, you know, this is the exact same thing that we were talking about earlier when you're shooting the side of the E75 from down here, right? Shooting the side of that E75 isn't going to be super productive. I think you went 2 for 6 on that E75. But as I said at the time, if instead of the E75, if that was the T54E1 inside profile, that's a good set of shots, right? And so you can create that same thing here by simply moving right here, right? You're still going to be the guy spotting him, but he's gonna have to point his front someplace. It'll either be to you or it will be to the JP, right? And you'll either get side shots or the JP will get side shots. But you're not creating a dilemma for this guy. You're not creating an issue where this guy's like, oh man, where am I gonna face my tank? You're sitting there and trying to trade punches with a much bigger guy from close range, and that's really not the strength of the tank. It looks like he's gonna push that guy. That was a pretty inefficient clip, and unfortunately he was pretty efficient with it. So a lot of those were desperation shots, right? Which is not really what you want to see, and now you just don't have enough ammo to kill him. So that unfortunately was as simple as it gets. That clip was the game, basically. And there's not enough time to cap him out, even if you could draw him away, etc., etc., etc. So this is exactly what you should have done before, when you still had enough shots to kill him. And again, so what you're looking to do, like let's pretend like you still had another full clip. What you're looking to do is create that distance, create that gap where he's constantly trying to close a gap against a tank that's faster than him, that outpaces him, and that's smarter than him, right? And if you constantly shift away from this guy, keep him lit in that butter zone, that's always going to work to your advantage. That's always what you're looking for. When you get close, right, that's to his advantage. Maybe you can ammo rack him. Ammo rack! Oh. And then just run away. Like, there's no reason for you to be even this close. Because he can two-shot you, like, theoretically. Alrighty, well, I mean, I thought you played the start reasonably well. I mean, again, if there's one takeaway from this match that we want to really talk about, it's this idea that light tanks need to be opportunistic with damage. You can't really attack into people's fronts. You really... I mean, you theoretically can. It's just not generally productive to attack into the strong sides of most tanks. Again, if it's you against that T-71, that's something completely different. Or if it's you against, like, let's say a Roomba, something with basically non-existent armor, that's fine. But a lot of these tanks, you're gonna struggle to pen frontally, or even like that E75 on the hill, right? You're going to struggle to pen those guys from that range, because you have to remember that you do lose penetration over distance, and so even if you're firing APCR, that's not going to be sufficient to deal consistent damage to that E75. But you know, as we were saying with that T54E1, if you have that T54E1 inside profile, suddenly those shots, those exact same shots from 400 meters, right? Those become more viable. And so I think a lot of it is just that sort of micro positioning in the end game. Again, I think that you played it reasonably well, but there were some things where if you just kept playing to the strengths of your tank, that you probably should have won this game. But you kind of got away from that a little bit, and you're just like, oh, well, you know, I'm just going to start shooting people in the front, or shooting an E75 in the side. And I think that is counter to what you want. And so, like, we'll look at the stats in a second, and I'm going to guess that your team didn't do a whole lot, but, you know, and you can make that argument, well, you know, I could have, you know, I needed some more support from my team, right? And yeah, technically that's true, but that's not what you got. And the difference in this game, that gap between winning, losing, or drawing, it's basically a loss. They should just give a loss to both teams for draws, IMO, but that's just me. Anyways, so the difference between losing and winning this game could have been your play. Like, if you had played this as well as you possibly could have, as well as I possibly know that you could have because of what you did, you should have been able to win this game. You should have been able to beat that T54E1. But you got away from the strengths of the tanks a little, and that's really what I want to point out from this particular replay. All right, so if we look at the stats. That PTA was in a good position to deal some damage as well. Again, on that, he was up on that high, on that one line, which is not where you normally see puppies go. And it's actually a good position if you can deal damage and if you get lights. Unfortunately, you didn't get a whole lot out of the rest of your team, but that's kind of to be expected. Their team didn't do super solidly either, but them's the breaks. 21 of 36 is not actually too bad on Proc, but again, I think for the opportunities that you had, a lot of it just comes to understanding the strengths of the 1390 gun, which is the well, I guess it's not really the strength of it. It's understanding the weakness of the 1390 gun, and that's really that at range it's entirely unreliable. And it's the same thing for the Bat Chat or for the T25 AP, or even the 1375. The guns aren't nearly as reliable at range, and you have to pre-aim. You have to aim way in front of tanks, so that when your reticle finally does shrink down, like when you're shooting that Roomba, so that when your reticle finally does shrink down, you're actually aimed in the correct area. And I think that's something for 13. If you don't play the 1390 a lot, like if you're not used to that, like I played the 1390 a lot because we used to play, tier 8 tournaments used to be at tier 8, and so we used to use 1390s a lot. So I have a lot of experience with using the gun, so I'm used to it. Like I know, okay, I have to aim like 100 meters in front of a tank if they're moving at a reasonable speed. Otherwise, I'm never going to be aimed in. And like if you try to, you can't trace tanks in a 1390. Like that's just, I mean, unless they're at point blank range, it's just not super viable. And so a lot of you'll run into the same issues with the Bat Chat, like in the Bat Chat 25T, right? It doesn't have a lot of ammo. The aim time, the accuracy on the gun is actually not too bad, but the aim time and dispersion are both bad. And so you need to be efficient with your clips, and this is something that we preach a lot in organized play, is that if you're playing a clip tank, you can't go 2 for 6. You can't go 1 for 6. You can't 3 for 6 is not good. Like 4 for 6, you're like, okay, that's acceptable. But for most of the clips that you take, you want to be more efficient in the French tanks, because the more that you miss in French tanks, it's a huge punishment. Like if you miss in the Czechoslovakian clip tanks, it's not nearly as punishing because those tanks have good DPM. But if you miss in the French tanks, it's really punishing, because you already don't have good DPM, and your damage just goes through the floor when you're inefficient with those clips. But GG, I thought you played it mostly pretty well. Like I didn't see a whole lot of flaws there. Just you kind of got away to what was winning you the game a little bit, and I think that ended up hurting you. Alright, so next we'll look at MochaDragon's Type 61 on Abbey. Oh, is that you, Bounce Blank? I always get confused when the names in the replays are different than the names of the people on Twitch. Damn, otherwise I would have picked a different one. Alrighty, so, well, the good news is you're in a top tier platoon. So you should win this game, although you don't really have a very good matchup. They've got some good heavies. So that's going to make this area more difficult to play. Like, you definitely shouldn't go to the 8 line. You theoretically could put one guy in the middle, but I don't even know that I would necessarily do that. Typically what you want to do against a heavier comp is try to control this 2 line, try to keep them from pushing up this 2 line, and then you basically need to see what they're doing and then react to that. Because, like, for example, if they push strongly up this 2 line, you need to either flex back and go through the 1 line or flex out. A lot of when you have these sort of comp mismatches, so to speak, you have to see what the tanks that you're afraid of are doing, and then position yourself accordingly to take advantage of that, of either where they're not or how to attack into them either inside or not. You got to be careful because playing through this middle here isn't necessarily advantageous. Like, you can sometimes get a free shot, but that's about it. And then again, remember, I don't typically like playing through this center lane here. It's a lot more sheltered if you come in through this side. It prevents people from pushing in through the middle. So you've basically sacrificed this west side, so you need to keep that in mind. You sent one of your platoon mates over there. Presumably you guys are on T6. Oh, their E75 is over here, so that's good. So this is the sort of deductive part of these types of games. So you guys are basically hanging out in the middle, which I don't necessarily have a problem with because, again, as I was saying, when you look at this type of comp, it's more of a read and react comp. Like, if it was reversed and you guys were in the heavies, then it's just like, okay guys, let's just go and bully this 1-2, but that's not the case. Because you're the lighter comp, you need to kind of see where they're at. So you know that their E75 is over there, you know that they have an IS-3 over here, right? So you know that a couple of their heavy tanks are over here. So you guys should shift over to this side, because if it's just the M103 over here, then you guys should be able to bully through here, because they've got at least a couple of their guys on that other side. So you do want to play aggressive here, and you don't want to necessarily counter this, because this guy's already in a bad position. So you don't. This is something that we talk about a lot in the stream, is that if somebody puts themselves in an irrelevant position, and this E75 is in an irrelevant position, don't make him relevant by going and fighting him. Like, that's not. If he wants to sit back here, like, you know, if they put a guy, you know, like if they put a guy out here on this little island over here, you don't want to necessarily go over there and shoot him just because you can, right? Just leave him there, because he's not going to influence the outcome of the game. And it's the same thing for this E75. This E75 is not going to influence the outcome of the game where he's at. So you don't need to worry about playing him. What you need to do is you need to understand that his absence creates a void, right? Because if that E75 and the M103 are on this side, that's a little formidable. But if it's just the M103 over there, yeah, I'm not really quite that afraid of that if you've got 3 tier 9 medium tanks. So I'm not entirely sure where you guys are going, because this is not going to be super productive. And again, remember, in these types of comp mismatches, you don't, you know, I was saying that you need to be reactive, but you don't necessarily, you want to play into your strengths. Like, you're basically camping right now, which is not going to be super productive. And again, you're sort of making this E75 relevant. I realize that he's sort of pushing there, but that's not really the point. And it's like, so they're M103, WZ111, and Luva are over here with the waffle. But you guys could still break that, I think. Again, playing these guys, to me, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's anything of significance. Like, that's not making the difference for your team. And then you need to be careful, because especially if they control this 2 line, they get shots through this lane as well. They have to move up a little bit more. But yeah, I don't think you guys are going to win anywhere right now. It doesn't look like. You're being just a little too reactive now. You're just it's just a little too campy. So you got that E75 down, but again, I don't think that that's super relevant. I mean, at this point, you can clear out through this middle. But you guys need to move forward a little bit more, because you're basically bleeding out, and you're just too far back. Like, at least go kill that Pershing. Like, that T-54 lightweight is fighting the Pershing, and you're like, giving him moral support. You're just like, good luck, my man. So yeah, this is just a little bit too much redlining for me. Like, you need to do something. Like, you're a top-tier tank. And especially, like, your buddies over here, you guys can counter-push that IS-3 before these guys catch up. Like, you can do a lot of things. You guys don't appear to be working together towards any goal at all. Again, it's just a little too campy. Like, your boys got them lit over there. You're just not doing anything about it. This guy needs to get out. Like, you have this window where you can push this IS-3, and somebody's gonna get shot, but he's gonna die. Well, hopefully he's gonna die. And so hopefully the Centurion gets out. And then, so one of the things that you can do is get back up into this area right here, which is going to help you defend this guy. Because defending this guy from over here is not nearly as productive as right here, just because of the way that these hills work. But you need to get yourself in a position. Again, you've been playing this entire game 2 steps behind. You've been the slower team this entire time. And also from this position right here, you'll get better shots onto this plateau right there as well. Like, you're a little bit too far back, you're not playing the right lanes, you're not playing the right angles, you're not being aggressive enough. Like, again, you have to understand the angles for attacking into here. Like, you've hung out with this guy a whole lot, but that's not super productive, because it's not like this guy's done a ton of damage either. You guys have just been playing second line this whole time. That hasn't really gotten you quite enough. RNG, best NG. So you guys don't want to hang out on this plateau. Again, this is something where if this guy's here, right, then you can be here and spawning for him, or you can be, I'm sorry, shooting for him, or you can be here and spawning for him if he's placed lower and they come higher. But you guys both being in the same place actually does not help you. And you pretty much hung out your other platoon mate to dry as well, so that also doesn't help. That was fine. And then see how your guys off over here and you're fighting this waffle? That's a little bit of a problem. It's like, the problem that I have when a lot of people platoon is that they don't actually ever work together. Like, there's never any, hey, let's do this, right? And really, that's the strength of playing in a platoon. Like when you guys finally charged that, when you finally charged the IS-3, that was the first and only teamwork that I've seen in this game. And then eventually they're going to come around on your backside, so you need to be aware of that. I wouldn't actually worry too much about the KP. He's turned around that other way. I would try to clear out through here while you have this narrow window. I would worry more about the waffle. He's going to be there. Good job. The GW Tiger is under duress, so you can attack into this 12T. The WZ-111 will be coming over, presumably either over the top or underneath. So you do need to be aware of that, but you need to get this 12T out. Again, if only because it reduces the speed differential between the two teams. You need to basically poke out their eyes. prevent them from having you know, the same advantages that we just watched in that Fiery Salient, where he can just, if he was smart, he could just keep you at range the entire game, keep you lit the entire game. Understand, give up that intel the entire game to your opponent. So you need to be more aggressive at this point, especially as a full health top tier tank. You can't be afraid of him. You can't be afraid of a 12T. You just can't do it. Just go. Just go. I don't care if you have to ram him to death. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Like, you've given them so much time to get back into a position where they can cover him. Okay, now you need to go kill this WZ-111. You need to get out through this back line now, because you don't want them to know that you're attacking into that guy. But he's a one-shot, you need to be able to take him down. So you want to look for ISOs at this point. They're all pretty spread out, right? The KP is fast enough that he can potentially come back through here, but you need to attack into this guy and get out of the area where you're at so you can get away from their artillery focus. So this is a reasonably good path. You gotta be careful here, but this is a reasonably good path. I like the fact that you cut out, and then now you just need to be aggressive and attack into this guy. Yes, he can shoot you, but he's one shot. You just need to punch him in the face repeatedly until he dies. No, don't. Just go all the way around, drive up there, and shoot him in the face. Like, you don't want to play this game where you're lit the entire game. Like, this is not to your advantage. Like, right now, you need to play this like you're the hammer. And just go around hammering people. Especially when they're ISO'd. If you, like, let's pretend that you knew that this KP and the M103 were both in this area underneath. If you know that you don't have the time to drive all around up here and attack into him because he's going to get defended by that, you just keep going. Go and kill artillery. Go and kill somebody else. You need to find ISOs right now. It's a 1-on-4, right? So you need to find where you're going to have the advantage. And so attacking into this guy, that's fine. You just got to do it. Just do it. Like, one of the... And so this was the same problem that I had with when you were playing with the 12T. So one of the things, when you're outnumbered in a game like this, or locally or in the overall game, right? And you need to figure out ways to generate offense for yourself, right? You need to figure out ways to keep them on the back foot where they're always chasing, or, you know, depending on what tank they're in, they're always running away. Right? What you don't want is you don't want them to start pooling in an area where they've got 2 or 3 tanks in an area now that are either faster than you or as fast as you, basically chasing you down. Like, that's not what you want. You want to pick up, you want to be, you know, the lion on the Serengeti plains picking off the wounded wildebeest. Like, that's your role, and you need to just do it. Okay, so again, so this is just math now. So you know that their GW Tiger is in that area right there, right? So he can't really attack into you here. You've got enough health to actually kill both of these guys potentially. You need to take out that WZ-111 first. This would hurt you. This would basically make you one shot to win this. But at this point, you don't really have a whole lot of options because, excuse me, because you don't have enough room to run. You can't run away from these guys. So you got to make this happen. If these guys nibble, that's to your advantage, at least a little bit, depending on how they set up. But you need to get this next shot on this M103 that just missed on you, or on the WZ-111 to kill him. What you don't want to do is you don't want to keep backing up here. You actually, so as I was saying, this is just straight math. You can win this. Like, you can win this fight. You just need to take out the WZ-111 with your next shot. So if that means that you just have to stand there and trade punches with them, so be it. Like that, you're kind of stuck in that now. Like that's the only thing that's the only choice that you have. So you might as well maximize your opportunities. Oh, and he missed, but you took a bad shot, and then you're backing up. Backing up, not good, not good. You're gonna make the rest of their guys more relevant. And again, so what you're trying to do here is you're trying to minimize the number of guys that you have to fight, right? You have to fight these guys. There's no choice for you here. You have to fight them. You don't have enough speed to turn around or position to turn around and run. You just don't. You can't do that. So when you know you have to fight somebody and you know that there's more people coming, you know that you need to fight these guys fast, and you've got enough health to do it. Just go up there and slug it out. Don't nibble, 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 because all you're doing is you're giving them time. You're giving them time. Artie can move. This KP can come over. All the other tanks can reinforce. If you know you can win, if you know that mathematically that you have the advantage, punch some face. Go after him. Oh, and the KP is now here. Oh well. So I'm not sure that you would have had the window to win that anyways. But you really should have just gone straight after those guys. Like, there's always that second where you're like, oh, can I run away here? And the instant that you go, nah, I can't run away here. Like, there's no way they're gonna let me just run away. I don't have the speed, and they're gonna be able to just get free shots on me. The instant that you know that you're stuck in a fight, you gotta fight, man. Like, don't nibble there. Well, if it's a fight that you can win. Like, if there were, you know, if both of those guys were full health, then yeah, I mean, you kind of don't have a whole lot of options. But when you know that you can win that fight, you got to win that fight before the rest of their team shows up. And I think that the biggest problem there was that the biggest problem over the whole match was that you never really had a sense of that timing. You were always 2 steps behind. Like this entire game, you were always 2 steps behind, and that's a big problem. You need to be a little bit more predictive in what's going on. And you guys kind of hung out in the middle for far too long. You let your team bleed to death. You let your teammate die. Your platoon mate would die. And you guys didn't really do a whole lot to stop them. You guys didn't work together to go, okay, we're bleeding on one side. Okay, let's go stop it. Or we're you know, it's a stalemate on one side. Let's go win it. Like, that was never an option. It was just, hey, let's kind of float around and see what kind of tanks drive in front of our guns. And that's sort of a bigger problem from this entire game, is that you guys were just a little bit too far back for most of it, and that's a bit of an issue. And then again, the minor issue is recognize, okay, I have a window here where I'm only fighting 1 tank, or I have a window here where I'm only fighting 2 tanks. And that window's gonna close, and you have to understand that, you know, the rest of the tanks that you don't see, oh, they're still driving towards you, right? They know where you're at. They know that you're the only tank left, so they're going to be moving too. So everything, you know, there's a timer on everything where you're just like, okay, I'm not, you know, you know that the KP was over here, so you know that, okay, it'll take him X amount of time to get around over here to help out his guy. And so you have to think to yourself, okay, well, I have X window in order to get through it. All right, so if we look at stats, I mean, you didn't get a whole lot out of your team, but you guys didn't really help your team out a whole lot either. So I don't really feel too bad for them. Yeah, I mean, it would have been tight, but I mean, I think you theoretically could have done it. you needed to be able to pick off one of those guys, either the WZ-111 or the M103, before they got into that point-blank brawling range with you, and that would have made it a lot easier, but you didn't really have those opportunities. Just a little bit too far back. Shooting-wise, you did okay. Oh, well. GG, nice try. Yeah, but it doesn't. So this is Green Zebra was saying that your limitation is always time. But so my argument has always been the Superman ideology, and so let's pretend that Superman was a real person, and so Superman can fly around and save people's lives. So the question ultimately becomes: is it Superman's responsibility to be flying around the Earth 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? Is that his responsibility because he can save people, to save people? And I think it's an interesting question from a moral point of view, because sort of, I'm obviously not Superman, but I think people need time off. I think people need to enjoy their life. And if you make Superman work 24/7, 365, like, he might not enjoy, you know, having to save people's lives all the time, but he can, right? So what is his moral obligation to it? And so I always found that to be an interesting question for how anybody, you know, of any ability spends their time. And I think that at the end of the day, it's about having some balance between what you feel is important for the contribution of your talents and actually enjoying your life. Like, I think it's important that Superman enjoys his life. I think that it's important that Superman has, you know, a window where he's like, hey guys, don't call me between, you know, 10 p.m. and midnight. All right, I gotta watch Game of Thrones, or whatever. You know, I think people need that, and so it's just a question about where you draw the line between whatever contribution that you have, you know, whether you're Superman or, you know, I always, you know, so when I talk to students, I sometimes make this analogy, is that, you know, like, let's pretend that I can tie shoes really well. Like, you know, I can tie shoes perfectly where they never become untied, they're never too tight, they're never too loose. I tie shoes extremely perfectly. But the question ultimately becomes, so I'm better at tying your shoes than you are, right? I'm better at tying anybody's shoes than they are. And so the question ultimately is it my responsibility to tie everybody's shoes for them because I can tie them for them perfectly? And I think it's not. I mean, I think you're obligated to do whatever you feel like you're obligated to do. It doesn't matter how good you are at it. And it's the reason why I make the shoe tying example is because shoe tying is trivial, right? Anybody can tie a shoe, right? When you talk about Superman, you're like, oh, hey, come on. Not everybody can do what Superman can do, right? But that's not the question that we're normally asking, right? The question that we're normally asking is, how much time do people spend doing what they're good at that contributes to society? And what do people do where they're just, you know, enjoying their life? Like, again, I'll go back to the shoe analogy. So if I tie shoes really well, I still need time off. I still need vacation time. I can't be tying everybody's shoes, everywhere I go. Like, that's just not going to be fun for me. Like, even if I'm contributing, I'm making all these people happy because they have perfectly tied shoes. Like, there's only so much of a moral obligation that I have to make sure that everybody's shoes are well tied. Alright, but back to the replay reviews. We can talk about the moral obligations of this in the Q&A time. Alright, I forgot to present this. This is Lithiumninja in his... It's not super accurate at range, but it's actually a pretty fun little tank. It's a little bit slow, like it bleeds some speed when it turns, but it's reasonably fast in a straight line. It's got really good gun depression over the tank, which you don't really think because it's like this short little fat tank, but it actually has pretty good gun depression over the front as well. And so on encounter on Winterberg, the south spawn actually has an advantage to get to this town. It's a very slim advantage, but it is an advantage, so you generally get to this area and play this for free. You can do a little bit of a loop. So typically on the standard mode, you'll do a west to east loop. On the encounter mode, you can't really do that because you have to swing out too far. But so you end up nibbling a little bit more. Like let's say you want to spot through this middle area here. What you end up doing is you end up coming up here and then just doing like a curlicue out. Because you don't want to cross back through this area right here, because anything that moves down there will end up getting shots on you. And so that's the difficult part about lighting this area here, which is why I generally don't worry about that. So if I'm in a light tank, I'll generally just come over here because I want to know what comes up through here, because this is where we're going to have our immediate advantage. Nope, that was weird. The timer hit 0 and the game didn't start. Alrighty, so your team is mostly going west, which, it's fine. Let's see what we can see here. If you, one thing I did neglect to say, you can sort of split the difference, which is come up through here and then basically take a right turn through there. It exposes you a little bit, but not quite as much as making this left turn out here. And then you never really want to try to fire on the move in this tank. Again, a lot like the a lot like the 1390, it's just not super accurate. And then right now you're sort of in that no man's land, which is not very good. Like typically you don't want to hang out over here. You don't really have a lot of your team out here, which means you're basically sacrificing this area. And this is where things become a little bit difficult, particularly in lighter tanks, is that if these guys move out through here, right, as potentially they can, like these guys don't appear like they're going to, but like if your team actually moves out through this side, the only thing that you can really do is come over here and support, because you can't win this by yourself most likely. You don't really know what's there yet because you haven't really gotten good intel. But it's going to be difficult slog on that side, and especially since they now have pressure. So yeah, you're not in a very good area, as you might have noticed by all these tanks and artillery shooting at you, which is why I don't like playing through this side here. If you're high on this side, at least you can come out through here. But so what you don't want to do is exactly what your team is doing. You don't want to ever hide on this back line. That is not good. Whoever controls up here controls the field, right? Just like whoever controls the sort of middle area here controls the city. So because your team is so far back, like these guys back here, they're not going to deal very much damage, and they are going to get wrecked. And so you don't want to be caught in that middle where you're at. And so at this point, it's better to just leave. And that T-37 can have shots on you. Like the more and more that you see here, the less and less that you want to be out here. Like just the Pershing alone would be able to bully you in the comment, but the Pershing, the KB2, the LTTB, they have control in the middle, they have an FE304, they have other artillery. Like, this all screams, hey, you don't want to play this side, man. That engine damage. And so unfortunately the rest of your team in here is going to get wrecked, and so you got to hope that your guys can play through here. And so this is where playing the light tanks becomes difficult, because you're going to have to be brave for these guys. These guys aren't going to be brave on their own. And so you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to bleed, and you have to accept that that's the price to have an opportunity to win. Because if you guys keep playing how you're going to play it, you're definitely going to lose, right? So something's got to change, and if that something means, hey, I got to take my light tank and I got to push into these heavies, I got to push around to get to the flank in order to inspire my troops to victory, then so be it. What you probably don't want to do is try to out-snipe these guys. Again, this is the same reasoning for the 1390, just not a very good tank at range. It's slightly better than the 1390, but it's still not good. And this is definitely not the position that you want to play. Again, all these guys back here are going to get wrecked. There's not going to be anything that you can do to save them. Whoever controls the middle controls the field. And so this is not a very good position because you're not really going to light anything as well. You went to the side where Artie can hit you. And I would just reload and leave. And again, this is about understanding windows here. Like you're not in a heavy tank. You're not in a medium tank. You're not going to be able to anchor this side. That's not your role, right? If this was a different map, if this was all open area and you had snipers and all you needed to do was light these guys, then that's one thing, but that's not. You have an opportunity to win on this side. Your guys just need to do it. They just need to be brave enough to do it. And so you staying on this side and basically, trying to stop a tsunami with your hands is not going to be super effective. What you need to do is you need to reload, get over here, push these guys. Like make it so that make it easier for your team, because these guys all out here, they're all gonna die. So sitting here and sort of sniping, that's not creating for your team. And again, it's not the easy thing, but that's what you need to do to have an opportunity to win this game. You guys need to win on that west, because you're not gonna win on the east. And so the more that you hang out on this east, just it's slipping away. That window is closing. No, just go, just leave them. Just leave those guys. Like those guys are irrelevant. You have a very small window. And that window is now closed. Oh man, look at how low those guys are. Oh, you guys totally could have done this. Just too much driving around, hanging out, playing the Sunday Tank Simulator. No, just keep going that way. Just literally just attack into that T-34. That's what your team needs you to do. Like, yes, it's gonna hurt to attack into that guy, but you need to do it. Like, holding this T-21 in place, that's not really. Just drive over there, do it! Oh my god! Okay, so now you actually have a bit of an advantage. So their guys are presumably, the Pershing might be coming through the middle, but the KV-2 we know is headed through the south. So you can potentially push up through here just to light and see if there's any guys, any of their arties sitting out there. But you don't want to play through this middle 3-line lane. You don't want to come back. That's not going to be useful. So you need to get out here. You need to utilize your speed and your vision. So what you really want to get away from is this idea that, again, this is the same thing that we talked about for the... So, and at this point now, you just run away, right? And again, that's why we want to try to avoid that 3-line. You basically just curl back towards your team and then go the other way. So you know where all their tanks are. You know that the Pershing is right there. You know that the KV-2 is right there. So what does that mean? You know that nobody's guarding the artillery. So just leave. Pershing can't catch up to you. Just leave. No, just leave. Just leave. He can't even one-shot you. Just leave. I'm not entirely sure what you think you're doing here. And again, remember, especially when you're playing against a 304, you don't necessarily want to camp corners. Because of that. Yeah, you have to remember the 304 is looking over here. Yeah, I don't really feel like that trade was worth it. I feel like you could have just gone after their artillery. You could have left at any point. Any point. Make them chase you. This is the same point that we brought up with the that Fiery Salient game, where use the advantages of your tank. You have less health than him. You have less armor than him. You have a worse gun than him, with less pen, less DPM, less alpha. Everything that you have is worse than his tank. So why, if everything that you have is worse than his tank, why do you want to get into a fist fight with that guy? Like, why do you want to get into a fist fight with Mike Tyson? You don't. You just don't. If you have to fight Mike Tyson, you want to fight him with bow and arrow from like 300 meters, right? Where you're just like, shoot at him and then run. Shoot at him and then run. Like, that's what you need to do in light tanks. You don't want to get into fist fights with people that are much bigger, much stronger, much healthier than you are. Like, that's just, it boggles my mind when I see light tanks do that, where I'm just like, why? Like, it would be one thing where if he was low health, like if he had 400 health and you had your clip where you're like, okay, I can take him. But like, you can't take this guy. If he was the only guy there, if he was the last guy on their team and you were the last guy on your team, right? You would not be able to kill him from that close of a range. So why are you trying to do it when he's got actual support, when he's got artillery support, when this KV-2 now is coming through this side? Like, I've never understood that from light tanks, but you see light tanks in pub matches do it again and again and again and again. They play away from their strengths, they play into their weaknesses, and it never works. I never see it, well, not never. On very rare occasions it works, but that boggles my mind. Also, you're someplace where the 304 can hit you, just as a heads up. Let it aim, my man. Uh-oh. Run, my man. Yeah. Just too much close fighting against tanks that are much stronger than you. And so, like, I felt like there's a window there where you could have helped your team win this side, and you basically stayed out here a little bit too long. Ultimately, I think that hurt you more than anything. You needed to get more out of your team. Like, your team didn't really advance anywhere, and that's always going to be a problem, and something that we were talking about earlier in the game, which was this idea that sometimes you have to do things. Sometimes you have to do things in light tanks that, you know, you're not going to be super happy about. Like, sometimes you do have to fight that Pershing from close range. Like, sometimes that's what your team needs. But you need to be able to identify that opportunity. And usually that opportunity occurs when it's like, okay, I have this small window where I can help my team stay alive, where I can help my team win one side. And if I have to sacrifice my life in order to make that happen, then so be it, right? So if I have to take my SP-1C and literally just drive into this T-34 in order to get my team to move over here and kill him, then so be it. But I need to do that before the window closes on this opportunity over here, before we bleed out too much on this side. And I think that's one of the things that's rough about light tanks, because in a medium tank, in a heavy tank, you can generally set the you can generally dictate certain outcomes, right? You can dictate, like, if you were in a medium tank and that Pershing was in a medium tank, then you can, that's a fair fight, at least, you know, depending on the tiers. Like, let's say it was the same tiers. That's at least a fair fight. So you can make the argument that, okay, you know, if I gotta fight this guy, I gotta fight this guy. But a lot of times when you're in a light tank, that's not the case. A lot of times when you're in a light tank, you're like, I don't really want to fight this guy one-on-one. Like, that's not my strength. But sometimes, especially when you have a bunch of your tanks cowering on one side, sometimes what you really need to do is you need to help them push through that side. And I really felt like, I don't know that would have won you the game. I mean, their game was still reasonably close when your guys finally did do it. But like, I felt like that at least would have given your guys an opportunity. Like, you had too many guys bleed out to like that Roomba, to that basically side flank maneuver that they ended up doing. That could have been mitigated if your team had cleared out through there earlier. And I know, I mean, it might sound like I'm putting it all on you, but this is a team problem, because your team sent most of their tanks over here and most of their tanks did nothing, right? Your guys in the field sat in the back and got wrecked because guys that sit in the back of the field get wrecked, right? So that's not your problem. You didn't tell them to go to those positions, but you can, you know, in any individual match, you can only play the hand that's given to you. And you were given a crappy hand here, but you still got to play it. And to me, you got to try to figure out how I got most of my team over here. How do I get them to actually win? And a lot of times, and it sucks, but a lot of times that means I got to drive my light tank into there and cause problems. Because if I don't, then these guys are just nibble, and they're going to bleed out. And so that's just one thing. And again, I'm not putting this loss on you. I'm just saying that was the only window that I saw for you to win this game. That the only window that I saw was, you got a chance to win out over here. You just need to make it happen, because you weren't going to win, you know, pretty much anywhere else. And if your team waited too long, then these guys were going to get to a flank and you were going to lose. And so we talk about timing a lot in terms of feeling the pressure, understanding that you're losing one side, and understanding that you have to win the other side. And when you start recognizing that pressure, then you know, okay, well, something has to happen over here. Like, something's got to break, and somebody's got to do something. And if that has to be a light tank, then it has to be a light tank. All right, so if we look at stats. Predictably, you did not get a lot out of your team. Campers generally don't deal very much damage, and your guys in the town nibbled quite a bit, which was a little bit of a problem. So you didn't get a whole lot out of your team, but despite the fact that you didn't get a whole lot out of your team, it was still a pretty close game. So I mean, you theoretically could have won it. And again, it was a bad bead for you. I mean, it was a bad situation for you. But you have to recognize, or I hope that you recognize that window on the east was closing, right? You knew that you were going to lose it. So it was just a matter of time before they were going to be able to put pressure on you from the east. And so that means that something's got to happen on the west. So 13 to 20, not too bad. And again, you know, you took some shots at like that T-37 that were on the move. The tank, these types of tanks don't generally shoot very well on the move. The sort of clip light tanks, well, at least the higher alpha clip light tanks don't. Like the T-71 Bulldog actually shoot reasonably well on the move. But for these, the effective range on the SB1C is larger than the effective range on, let's say, the 1390. But it's still not, you know, it's not like 200 meters. It's more like 150, whereas the 1390 is like 100. So you have to keep that in mind for the tank. It's just these clip tanks are not super accurate on the move. But that's pretty good though. 13 of 1320 is not bad. So GG, nice try.